Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Affair Diaries. My husband told me he regretted marrying me in front of our entire family. I didn't make a scene. I just quietly reclaimed the mansion that was mine, leaving his whole family out on the street. That evening's dinner, as usual, was held in the luxurious mansion in Crestwood Estates, the kind of upscale, gated community the elite retreat to. This mansion was a graduation gift from my parents. But for the past 7 years, it had become a home not only for my husband and me, but for his entire family. My mother-in-law, Barbara Vance, my sister-in-law, and her husband all lived together under my roof. My father once told me, "A grand house with narrow-minded people is just a gilded cage." For 7 years, I had felt the truth of that statement in my very bones. On the dining table, gourmet dishes were arranged beautifully, all prepared by our family's private chef. The atmosphere seemed warm, but I knew it was just a fragile facade. My mother-in-law, Barbara, was relentlessly piling food onto Kevin's plate. My husband, Dr. Kevin Vance, lapped it up with a chorus of sighs. "Kevin, honey, you look so thin lately," Barbara cooed. "Work at the university is so demanding, and then you come home and have to worry about everything here. A man carrying the world on his shoulders needs to take care of his health." I remained silent, sipping my soup. Her words sounded like a mother's concern, but they were a thinly veiled jab at me for not taking proper care of my husband. This was nothing new. In 7 years as a daughter-in-law, I had heard these passive-aggressive remarks countless times. Kevin, the man who held the title of associate professor and cultivated an image of scholarly elegance, heard his mother and immediately set down his fork, letting out a weary sigh. He looked at me, his eyes devoid of any warmth, then glanced around the table where his family sat. His voice dropped, thick with an unconcealed resentment. "You're right, Mom. I feel exhausted all the time. If only I hadn't made such a terrible mistake back then, maybe my life would be different now." The table fell silent. My sister-in-law coughed awkwardly, and her husband stared intently into his bowl of risotto. Only Barbara looked at me with a triumphant glint in her eyes. I knew this little drama was about to begin again. This wasn't the first time Kevin had said things like this. I had lost count. But for him to say it so openly, in front of the whole family, this was precisely the 8th time. The 8th time he had declared that he regretted marrying me. The first 7 times, I chose silence. I swallowed my tears, telling myself I had to endure it for the family, for my parents' reputation. I thought my silence would make him feel ashamed, that it would teach him where the line was. But I was wrong. My silence only emboldened him and his family. They saw my patience as weakness, my generosity as an entitlement. But today, this 8th time, something inside me shattered. Perhaps my endurance had finally reached its limit. I no longer felt pain or humiliation. Instead, a strange, profound calm spread through me. I slowly placed my sterling silver fork and knife on the white porcelain rest. It was a small gesture, but it drew every eye to me. I lifted my head and looked directly into Kevin's eyes. For the first time in 7 years, I looked at him not with the love of a wife, but with the detached gaze of a stranger. "What exactly do you mean by that?" My voice was steady, without a single ripple of emotion. Kevin seemed taken aback by my reaction. He was used to me lowering my head in silence or finding an excuse to leave the table. "Clara, don't overthink it. I'm just feeling a lot of pressure lately," he stammered, trying to backtrack. Barbara immediately jumped in to defend her son. "That's right, dear. Your husband was just talking. Every marriage has its ups and downs. As a wife, you need to be more understanding." I let out a faint smile, a smile I didn't realize was so cold. "Barbara, your son is an associate professor, an educated man. His words can't be dismissed as just talking. He said this exact thing 8 times. I think when a statement is repeated 8 times, it's no longer a slip of the tongue. It's the truth." The air at the table grew thick. Barbara was speechless, her mouth agape. Kevin's face alternated between pale and flushed. I didn't look at them anymore. I calmly took my phone from the designer handbag beside my chair. My finger swiped across the screen, finding a number saved in my contacts. I pressed call and turned on the speakerphone. "Hello, Mr. Harrison, please." A deep, professional male voice came through the line. "This is Arthur Harrison speaking. How may I help you, Miss Montgomery?" Everyone at the table held their breath. They stared at me as if I were some alien creature that had just materialized. I maintained my calm tone. "Mr. Harrison, I would like to initiate divorce proceedings against my husband, Mr. Kevin Vance. Furthermore, I need you to immediately begin the legal process to reclaim the property at 27 Orchid Lane, Crestwood Estates. It is a premarital asset. Finally, as of tomorrow, the $10,000 monthly stipend for Mr. Vance's family will be terminated. I will send you all the necessary documents in the morning. Understood, Miss Montgomery. I'll get started right away, Mr. Harrison's voice was efficient and decisive. I ended the call and placed the phone back on the table. The entire time, I hadn't glanced at anyone. I picked up my linen napkin, delicately dabbed my lips, and stood up. I'm finished. Please. Enjoy the rest of your meal. With that, I turned and walked straight out of the dining room, leaving behind a deathly silence and faces contorted in horror. The wind outside seemed stronger than usual tonight, but my heart was strangely at peace. 7 years of hell had to end. I didn't go to the master bedroom we shared. Instead, I went to my private study on the 3rd floor and locked the door. I needed a quiet space to organize my thoughts. The decision I had just made wasn't a spur-of-the-moment act of anger. It was the culmination of a long, slow burn, of countless nights I'd spent lying alone, my pillows soaked with tears. Sitting in the soft leather armchair, looking out the large window that overlooked a meticulously manicured garden, my mind was a whirlwind. Every brick, every bush in this mansion was designed by me, built by my father. It was his gift to me when I graduated from college, my pride and joy. Yet, for 7 years, it had become a sanctuary for parasites, people who did nothing but take from me and insult me. Less than 30 minutes later, I heard frantic ringing from the doorbell downstairs, mixed with Barbara's shrieking and the flustered voice of our housekeeper. I knew my lawyer had arrived. Mr. Harrison was a man of action. I unlocked my study door and calmly walked down the grand staircase. The scene in the foyer was exactly as I had predicted. Absolute chaos. Mr. Harrison, along with 2 uniformed security guards, stood in the middle of the room. Barbara was pointing a finger in their faces, screaming, "Who are you people? Who let you in here? This is my son's house. Do you know who he is? Get out of my house, now." Kevin stood beside her, his face ashen, feebly trying to pull his mother's arm back. His sister and brother-in-law were huddled in a corner, their expressions a mixture of fear and curiosity. Seeing me, Mr. Harrison gave a slight, professional nod. I walked over and stood before my husband's family. "Barbara, this is my lawyer. He's here to carry out my request." My voice remained steady. Barbara whipped around to face me, her eyes blazing. "What request? What kind of game are you playing? Don't you think just because your family has a little money, you can do whatever you want? I'm not afraid of you." I didn't argue with her. I gestured to Mr. Harrison. He understood immediately, opened his briefcase, and took out a folder of documents. "Ma'am, according to this deed and title, the property at 27 Orchid Lane is the sole and separate property of Miss Clara Montgomery, registered prior to her marriage to Mr. Vance. Under the law, this is her personal asset. Therefore, Miss Montgomery has the full legal right to demand that any unauthorized persons vacate the premises." Mr. Harrison spoke clearly, each word landing like a hammer blow on Kevin's family. Barbara froze, unable to believe what she was hearing. She had always assumed this house belonged to her son, that it was a marital asset she was entitled to enjoy. "No, it can't be. You lied to me," she stammered, pointing a trembling finger at me. I looked her straight in the eye. "I never said this house was a marital asset. You and everyone else just assumed it was. For 7 years, I allowed your entire family to live here out of respect. But today, that respect is gone, and so is the reason for you to stay." I then turned to Kevin, who stood there as if struck by lightning. "You heard him. This is my house. You and your family have 24 hours to pack your personal belongings and leave. After 24 hours, I'm having all the locks changed. Anything left behind will be considered trash and disposed of." Kevin finally snapped out of his stupor. He rushed towards me, his eyes pleading. "Clara, don't do this. Whatever it is, we can talk about it. Don't let things get to this point." "Talk about it?" I laughed, a dry, bitter sound. "Have we been short on time to talk for the past 7 years? Or were the 8 times you humiliated me in front of everyone not enough to express your thoughts?" Kevin was speechless. He knew he had no defense. I continued, my voice as cold as ice. "Oh, and one more thing. As of today, The $10,000 monthly allowance I've been depositing into your mother's account will stop. From now on, you'll all have to provide for yourselves." This announcement was even more shocking than reclaiming the mansion. The $10,000 a month was the main source of income for Kevin's entire family. Barbara used it for spa days and designer shopping. Kevin's sister and her husband depended on it. Cutting it off was like cutting off their life support. Upon hearing this, Barbara's eyes rolled back in her head, and she dramatically fainted. Kevin's sister screamed and rushed to catch her. The scene descended further into chaos. Kevin looked at me with a mixture of hatred and helplessness. I was unmoved. I had seen this act too many times. I turned to my lawyer. "Mr. Harrison, please have your security team stay here to supervise. Ensure that they leave within 24 hours and cause no damage to the property. Rest assured, Miss Montgomery." With that, I picked up my handbag and walked out the door. I didn't want to spend another second in that place. The suffocating atmosphere, the greedy and deceitful people, I had endured enough. As my car pulled away from the gate, I saw Kevin in the rearview mirror, standing frozen, watching me go. Perhaps even at this moment, he couldn't believe that his perpetually submissive wife could become so decisive and ruthless. But he didn't know that my ruthlessness today was forged by his and his family's cruelty over the past 7 years. I didn't drive to my parents' house. I didn't want to worry them in the middle of the night. My father's health wasn't good. He had a heart condition and couldn't handle major shocks. Instead, I drove to a penthouse apartment in the city center. This was my private sanctuary, a secret place that not even Kevin knew about. I had bought it a few years ago, as if preparing for this very day. The apartment was designed in a minimalist style, with a palette of white and gray, a stark contrast to the ornate luxury of the mansion. This place was the real me, an architect who loved elegance and freedom. I sank into the long sofa, the exhaustion finally hitting me. Not a physical exhaustion, but a spiritual fatigue that had been building for 7 long years. Memories of my marriage flooded back, as clear as a slow-motion film. I first met Kevin on a rainy afternoon in the university library. He was a young lecturer, and I was a final-year student working on my thesis. The image of him in a crisp white shirt, holding an umbrella to shield me as I ran to the bus stop, had made my heart flutter. He was gentle, well-spoken, and knowledgeable about literature and art, a world away from the vapid, rich kids I usually met. We fell in love quickly. When I brought him home to meet my parents, my father, an astute judge of character, was not pleased. He told me, "Clara, that young man's eyes aren't sincere. He looks at you, at our family, with a hunger that isn't for love, but for ambition. Please, think carefully." But I was blinded by love. I thought my father was being too harsh, that he was prejudiced against Kevin's modest background. I argued with him, insisting on marrying Kevin. In the end, out of love for his daughter, my father relented. Our wedding was a grand affair, one of the most talked about events in the business community that year. The first few months of marriage were sweet, but when I moved his entire family into my mansion, things began to change. My mother-in-law, Barbara, was a greedy and acrimonious woman. She put on an act of being a simple, down-to-earth person, but she was incredibly calculating. She treated me like a gold mine. Every expense in the house, from groceries to shopping sprees and vacations for my sister-in-law, was paid by me. I remember once she broke a priceless Ming Dynasty vase my father had given me. When I asked about it, she denied everything and blamed the housekeeper, causing the poor girl to be unjustly fired. It was only later, when I reviewed the security footage, that I discovered the truth. Another time, knowing I was trying to conceive, she secretly put some kind of powder in my food, claiming it was a family heirloom herb that promoted fertility. But when I had it tested, my doctor said it was a substance detrimental to reproductive health that could lead to infertility if used long-term. From that day on, I never touched anything she cooked. As for Kevin, after we married, his true colors began to show. He was insecure about his background and constantly tried to prove he was superior. He was jealous of my career success, jealous of my family's wealth. He started coming home late, taking his phone calls outside. I knew he was seeing other people, but I tried to ignore it, hoping he would come to his senses. I was wrong. My train of thought was interrupted by my phone ringing. It was Mr. Harrison, Miss Montgomery. As you requested, I had someone review the security camera system in the mansion. There's been a significant discovery. I've sent the video to your email. I quickly opened my laptop. There was a new email. I clicked on it. The video was recorded at 2 p.m. 3 days ago, while I was in an important meeting at my firm. In the video, Kevin brought a young woman, likely a college student, into our home. They engaged in intimate acts right there on the living room sofa, the same sofa where I had sat for my final dinner with them just hours ago. Watching those images, my heart no longer ached. It only felt disgust. Disgust for the man I once loved. Disgust for his hypocrisy. This evidence, along with what my father had been quietly investigating for me, would be my sharpest weapon to end this marriage swiftly and reclaim everything that belonged to me. Tonight would be a long night for Kevin's family. But for me, it was a night of truth, the night I decided to take back my own life, a life no longer shackled by lies and betrayal. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight streaming into the room. For the first time in years, I had a deep, dreamless sleep. The feeling of liberation was intoxicating. I made myself a cup of coffee and stood by the window, watching the bustling city traffic below. A new day had begun, and so had my battle. Around 9 a.m., my apartment doorbell rang. I checked the security monitor. As expected, it was Kevin Vance. He looked haggard. The designer suit he wore was wrinkled, and his usually perfectly coiffed hair was a mess. He must have had a sleepless night. I took a deep breath and opened the door. Kevin saw me, his expression a complex mix of anger and pleading. "Clara, we need to talk," he said, his voice hoarse. I didn't invite him in. I simply stood in the doorway, my arms crossed. "I think we have nothing left to talk about. My lawyer will be sending you the divorce papers soon. Don't be like this, can't you?" Kevin took a step forward, trying to soften his tone. "I know I was wrong yesterday. I shouldn't have said those things. It was just the pressure from work. I had a little too much to drink. I lost control. Please, forgive me this one time." I looked at him and felt a sense of ridicule. The same old excuses. Always blaming the circumstances, the alcohol, never admitting his own character flaws. "Kevin, do you think I'm still the naive girl from 7 years ago? Once, twice, I might have believed you. But this was the 8th time. My patience has its limits." Seeing that his gentle approach wasn't working, Kevin's attitude shifted. He eyed me suspiciously. "What is it you really want? Making a huge scene, kicking my entire family out onto the street. Does that make you happy? Have you thought about my reputation? About our family's honor?" "Honor?" I scoffed. "When you said you regretted marrying me, did you think of my honor? When you brought other women into my home, did you think about the honor of this wife?" My last sentence made Kevin freeze, his face draining of color. What nonsense are you talking about?" "Nonsense?" I didn't waste words. I turned back inside, grabbed my tablet, and pulled up the video Mr. Harrison had sent. I held the screen up to Kevin's face. "Take a look. Is this nonsense? Right there, on the sofa in my house. In the home I tried so hard to build. Don't you feel disgusted?" Kevin stared at the screen, his face turning a deathly white. He stumbled back a few steps, sputtering incoherently. The evidence was undeniable. He couldn't deny it. Silence hung between us. After a moment, Kevin's demeanor changed 180 degrees. He looked at me with pleading eyes, his voice becoming desperate. "Clara, I was wrong. I was so wrong. She seduced me. It was a moment of weakness. Please, believe me. I only love you. We've been together for 7 years. Are you really going to throw it all away?" He tried to step forward and take my hand, but I stepped back, maintaining the distance. "Don't touch me. I feel dirty." My words were cold and final. "You don't need to act anymore. It wasn't just her, was it? How many others have there been? You know best." Kevin was stunned. He probably never imagined I knew so much. I didn't want to drag it out. "I gave you 24 hours to move out of my house. It's 9 a.m. now, which means you have until 9 a.m. tomorrow. If you and your family are still there, I won't be so polite. Now, please leave. I don't want to see your face." With that, I slammed the door in his face, giving him no chance to say another word. I leaned my back against the door, feeling my heart pound. This was the first time I had confronted him so directly, so fiercely. There was no more fear, no more hesitation, only the firm resolve to escape this toxic marriage. Outside, I heard Kevin bang on the door a few times, then a muffled curse, and finally, the sound of his footsteps fading away. The first battle was won, but I knew this was just the beginning. His family, especially his mother, would never let me go so easily. As I predicted, after Kevin's failed attempt, the next person to step up was Barbara Vance. That afternoon, while I was reviewing blueprints for a new project, my phone rang with an unknown number. I answered. A familiar voice, deliberately made to sound weak and pitiful, came through the line. Clara? It's Mom, dear. I paused for a few seconds. Is there something I can help you with, Barbara? I had changed my form of address. I could no longer call this woman Mom. The other end of the line seemed to stutter at my coldness. She coughed a few times, then continued. Clara, don't be angry with me. I know what Kevin did was wrong. I'm apologizing on his behalf. Can we meet and talk for a little while? I miss you so much. It was a clumsy performance. But I knew if I refused, she would use it as an excuse to say I was heartless. Fine. 4 p.m. at the Garden Cafe on Lexington Avenue. I'll make a reservation. I chose a cafe with an open, elegant space that wasn't too loud. I wanted this conversation to happen in a public place so she couldn't cause a scene. I arrived 10 minutes early and chose a corner table where I could observe the entire cafe. At exactly 4 p.m., Barbara appeared. Contrary to her usual disheveled and angry demeanor, today she was dressed simply, her face lightly made up but deliberately crafted to look haggard and tired. The moment she saw me, she started sniffling, her eyes red as if she'd been crying all night. Oh, Clara, my dear girl, she said, sitting down opposite me. She reached out to take my hand, but I pulled it back in time. If you have something to say, Barbara, please get straight to the point. I don't have much time, I said, my voice devoid of emotion. My attitude seemed to fluster her, but she quickly slipped back into her role. She began her usual sob story. Look at me, Clara. I've had such a hard life. My husband died young, and I raised 2 children all by myself. Kevin is my only pride and joy. I know he wronged you, but people make mistakes. You've been married for 7 years, sleeping in the same bed. How can you be so cruel? You kicked my whole family out onto the street, cut off all financial support. How do you expect me and the kids to live? She took out a handkerchief to dab at her tearless eyes. Barbara, I replied calmly, your son is an associate professor. Your daughter and son-in-law are able-bodied adults. They are all perfectly capable of supporting themselves. As for me, kicking you out, let me correct you. I was taking back my own house. That house was a gift from my parents. It has nothing to do with the Vance family. But you're still our daughter-in-law. How can you be so calculating? She insisted, trying to use moral obligation to pressure me. I smiled faintly. Calculating? Do you remember the antique Ming Dynasty vase my father gave me? It was worth a fortune. You broke it and then blamed the housekeeper, causing an innocent girl to lose her job. Why didn't you think about morality then? Barbara's face changed color. What are you talking about? I don't know anything about that. You don't know? I took a sip of tea, my gaze sharpening. Then what about the powder you put in my food? You said it was a family remedy to help me conceive. I had it tested. The doctor said if I had taken it long-term, I might never have been able to become a mother. Tell me, Barbara, where was your mother-in-law morality then? My words were like a bucket of ice water thrown in her face. Her pitiful mask shattered. She could no longer act. Her eyes blazed with fury. You had me investigated? You ungrateful brat. I did that for the good of this family. I wanted a grandchild to carry on the family name. You're nothing but a barren tree, unable to bear fruit, and you dare to blame others. Finally, her true nature was exposed. Vile words poured from her mouth without a hint of shame, even though we were in a public place. A few customers at nearby tables had started to stare. I stood up and placed a $100 bill on the table. Our conversation is over. I believe there is nothing left to say between me and your family. From now on, let the court settle things. I turned and walked away, not bothering to look back at her face, which was twisted in rage. I could hear her cursing behind me, but her words no longer hurt. I knew it was pointless to reason with people like this. Only a firm stance and irrefutable evidence could silence them. She had lost this round, but I knew they wouldn't stop here. 2 days after my meeting with Barbara, I was presiding over a crucial meeting at my architectural firm. It was the final presentation for the new Seaside Resort Complex, a project I had poured my heart and soul into for the past 6 months. The entire board of directors and representatives from the investment group, the final decision-makers, were present. Everything was going smoothly. I was confidently presenting on the large screen, analyzing the superior aspects of my design. Suddenly, the conference room doors were thrown open, The heavy wooden doors slammed against the wall with a loud bang, startling everyone. Kevin Vance stood in the doorway, in a state I had never seen before. His shirt was untucked, his tie loosened, his hair disheveled, and his face flushed with anger and, most likely, alcohol. He had lost all semblance of the suave, scholarly professor. "Clara Montgomery, get out here," he roared, pointing a finger directly at me. The room fell into a stunned silence. All eyes turned to me, some curious, some sympathetic, and some, like Director Thompson, a rival who was always trying to undermine me, filled with glee. I stood frozen at the podium, trying to keep my voice as calm as possible. "Kevin, I am in a very important meeting. Whatever it is, please wait outside. We can talk later." "Talk later?" "There is no later." Kevin staggered into the room, the reek of alcohol filling the air. "I'm going to talk right here, right now, so everyone can see your true face. A rich, arrogant woman who abuses her power and has no respect for her husband's family." He began his performance, his tone full of anguish, as if he were the world's greatest victim. "Ladies and gentlemen, I am her husband. Just because I misspoke one time, she cruelly threw my elderly mother and my entire family out of the house in the middle of the night. My mother, who has worked hard her whole life, is now old and sick, forced to live in a rented room. She even cut off all financial support, leaving us with no way to survive. Tell me, what kind of daughter-in-law is so heartless?" His blatant lies made me clench my fists. He was deliberately trying to destroy my reputation and my career, to smear my name in front of my most important partners and colleagues. It was a vicious, calculated attack. Director Thompson, sitting at the conference table, smirked. He was clearly enjoying this. I knew that the more I lost my composure, the more I would be playing into his hands. I took a deep breath, looked straight at Kevin, then turned to my guests and colleagues. "Ladies and gentlemen, I sincerely apologize for this unfortunate interruption. This is a private family matter. Please allow me a few moments to resolve it." I then pressed a button on the conference phone, connecting to building security. "Security to the 15th floor main conference room immediately. We have a disturbance." Seeing me call security, Kevin became even more frantic. He lunged towards me, trying to grab the microphone. "What are you doing? Trying to shut me up? I'll tell everyone. She's not just disrespectful. She's a cheating whore. She has a lover on the side." Before he could finish his sentence, 2 large security guards arrived. They quickly grabbed Kevin by the arms. "Sir, you need to leave. You're causing a disturbance," one of them said firmly. "Let go of me. Do you know who I am? I'm your director's husband." Kevin struggled and screamed, but the strength of a bookish academic was no match for 2 well-built men. He was dragged out of the conference room in front of everyone, his curses echoing down the hallway before fading away. When the doors closed, silence returned, but the atmosphere had completely changed. I stood at the podium, feeling dozens of pairs of eyes on me. I knew my image in their eyes had been tarnished. I bowed my head once more. "Ladies and gentlemen, once again, I am truly sorry that you had to witness that unpleasant scene. Due to this incident, I propose we adjourn the meeting for today. I will arrange another session at the earliest convenience to continue my presentation. Our company will take full responsibility for any additional travel expenses incurred by the investor representatives." My professional and calm handling of the situation seemed to win back some goodwill. The lead investor, a distinguished middle-aged man, stood up and nodded. "That's quite all right, Director Montgomery. We understand that family matters can be complicated. We will await your new schedule." After everyone had left, I finally collapsed into a chair, feeling utterly exhausted. Director Thompson walked past, dropping a sarcastic comment. "Well, it seems Director Montgomery is not only busy with company business, but her home life is quite eventful too." I didn't respond. I knew this fight wouldn't end in the courtroom. Kevin and his family would do everything they could to drag me through the mud with them. I needed to be stronger. The first thing I had to do now was go see my father. I needed his support and advice more than ever. Leaving the office, I didn't go back to my apartment. I drove straight to my parents' home, a classic estate in a quiet, old-money neighborhood, a world away from the city's hustle and bustle. As I passed through the familiar iron gates and saw the rose garden my mother tended to so lovingly, my heart began to calm. The stress and exhaustion from the incident at work seemed to melt away. My mother was watering the plants. Seeing my car, she quickly put down the watering can and rushed over, her eyes full of concern. "Clara, what are you doing home at this hour? You look so pale. Did something happen?" I forced a smile to reassure her. I'm fine, Mom. I just came to visit. Where's Dad? He's in his study, probably looking at stock market news again. Go on in. I'll get you a glass of orange juice. I knew my mother was sensitive. She could sense something was wrong, but she wouldn't press me until I was ready. I nodded and went inside, heading straight for my father's study. The solid oak door was slightly ajar. I heard his familiar cough from within. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. My father was sitting in his usual leather armchair, holding a newspaper, but his gaze was distant. He looked up when he saw me, his eyes gentle but filled with a deep understanding. You're home. Come, sit with me. I walked over and sat in the ottoman beside him. My father put down the paper and looked at me directly. I already know what happened at the office. I wasn't surprised. My father had eyes and ears everywhere. Something this big wouldn't have escaped him. I lowered my head, a pang of guilt in my voice. I'm sorry, Dad. I've damaged our family's reputation. My father shook his head gently, his warm hand resting on my shoulder. Silly girl, you did nothing wrong. The one at fault is the person who caused that scene. My only regret is not stopping you from the very beginning. He sighed, his eyes looking off into the distance. The day you brought Kevin home, I knew he was no good. A person's eyes don't lie. He looked at you, at this estate, with the eyes of a predator. But you were so in love. I knew you wouldn't listen to anything I said. I was afraid if I pushed too hard, your pride would only make you dig in your heels deeper. So I stayed silent. But that doesn't mean I did nothing. With that, my father stood up and walked over to the large safe in the corner of the room. He turned the dial, and the heavy doors swung open. Inside, instead of cash or gold, were neatly arranged folders. He pulled out a thick, dark brown file and placed it on the table in front of me. Open it, Clara. Curiously, I opened the file. Inside was a collection of documents that left me speechless. There were photographs of Kevin, hand in hand, embracing different women in various locations. There were bank statements showing large, regular transfers to unknown accounts. There was even a detailed report from a private investigator, documenting Kevin's activities over the past few years' secret meetings, extramarital affairs. I flipped through the pages, my hands trembling. My father knew everything. He had been quietly investigating and gathering evidence of Kevin's betrayal for a long time, all to protect me. I looked up at him, my vision blurred with tears. My father sat down beside me, his voice low. I didn't want to show you this sooner, because I wanted you to see his true face for yourself. You are my daughter, strong and resilient. I knew you wouldn't break. I was just waiting for the day you were truly ready to face it. And that day has come. He patted my shoulder gently. Now you have all the ammunition you need. Don't be afraid. Do what you think is right. No matter what happens, your mother and I will always be behind you. This family will always be your rock. His words were like a warm current flowing through me, washing away all my fatigue and anxiety. I no longer felt alone. I threw my arms around my father and sobbed like a child. For 7 years, I had forced myself to be strong, to hide all my pain. But now, in my father's arms, I could be vulnerable. I could finally let go of the burden. Holding the file, I felt its weight. It wasn't just the weight of the evidence, but the weight of the boundless love my father had for me. With his backing, I knew I could face whatever storms were coming. The next morning, I spent the entire day in my apartment, meticulously studying the file my father had given me. The more I read, the more I was astounded by Kevin Vance's deceit and cunning. He wasn't just cheating with 1 or 2 women. There was a long list of young women, mostly students from his university. He used my money to rent apartments for them, buy them designer clothes, and live a lavish life behind my back. Worse, there was evidence that he had abused his position to coerce students into doing his bidding. Everything was documented in clear, irrefutable detail. As I was organizing the evidence, my phone buzzed incessantly. It was Sarah, my best friend from college. Her voice was frantic and furious. Clara, where are you? You need to get online right now. Your scumbag husband is putting on a pity play for the whole world to see. Puzzled, I opened my tablet and went to the most popular social media site. The first thing I saw was a post from Kevin Vance, being shared at a viral pace. It was a long, melodramatic post written in a heart-wrenching tone. He painted himself as a talented but underappreciated professor from a poor background who, out of love, had married a wealthy heiress. He described his 7-year marriage as a living hell, where he constantly endured scorn and disrespect from his wife's family. He claimed he had tried to be patient, but under immense pressure, he had let one wrong sentence slip out during a family dinner. And then he described how I had mercilessly thrown his entire family, including his frail, sick mother, out of the house. He even attached a photo of himself, sitting dejectedly in a cramped, squalid-looking motel room. Another photo showed Barbara lying in a hospital bed, an IV drip in her arm, looking incredibly pitiful. "I have lost everything," he wrote at the end. "My career, my family, and my dignity. I am writing this not to blame anyone, but to ask the public for a little fairness. In the eyes of society, is the poor intellectual always the one in the wrong?" The post struck a chord with the online mob. Within hours, it had tens of thousands of likes and thousands of shares and comments. Most of the comments expressed sympathy for Kevin and viciously attacked me. They called me a spoiled rich brat, a heartless monster, a disrespectful daughter-in-law. Some people even found the name of my firm and were calling for a boycott of my projects. It was a perfectly orchestrated smear campaign. Kevin had cleverly weaponized the narrative of class struggle, a theme that always easily incites public sympathy and outrage. Sarah called me again, on the verge of tears. "Oh my God, Clara, they're tearing you apart online. You have to say something, set the record straight." Contrary to my friend's panic, I felt strangely calm. "Don't worry about it, Sarah. Let him have his moment in the spotlight. The higher he climbs, the harder he'll fall. But, no buts. Just trust me," I reassured her. A moment later, Sarah sent me a text. "Clara, I just remembered something. A few weeks ago, I was at the Garden Cafe for a client meeting, and I saw Kevin with some college girl. They were acting way too cozy. It rubbed me the wrong way. So I discreetly snapped a few pictures. See if you can use them." Attached to the text were several photos, taken from a distance but quite clear. In them, Kevin was holding a young woman's hand, gazing at her adoringly. The woman was none other than Jessica, the same student from the security camera footage at my house. I smiled. The universe was on my side. "Thanks, Sarah. This gift is right on time." Kevin had started a media war himself. He wanted to use public opinion to pressure me, to ruin my career. But he forgot one thing. Public opinion is a double-edged sword. If it could lift him up, it could also drag him down to the depths. And I would be the one to give the public the truth they were clamoring for. "Your play, Kevin," I thought. "Let me be the one to bring down the curtain." Instead of engaging in a pointless war of words on social media, I chose a more direct and effective approach. I needed to meet Jessica, Kevin's current mistress, the naive student he was leading on. Using the information my father had provided, finding her class schedule and address was easy. I sent Jessica a text from an anonymous number. "I am Dr. Kevin Vance's wife. I know about you and him. 10 a.m. tomorrow. Starbucks at the Vincom Mall, 3rd floor. I want to talk. Don't try to avoid this. It won't be in your best interest." I chose a crowded public place with plenty of security cameras. I didn't want a loud confrontation. I wanted a conversation, a negotiation where I held all the cards. The next morning, I arrived early. I wore an elegant business suit, with light makeup that conveyed confidence and power. I wanted Jessica to see the difference between us not in looks, but in presence. At exactly 10 a.m., Jessica appeared. She was young, probably just over 20, with a pretty face but makeup that was a bit too heavy for her age. She wore an expensive designer dress and carried a matching handbag. I knew all of it was bought with my money. Jessica scanned the coffee shop before walking towards my table, her eyes betraying a hint of fear, though she tried to maintain a defiant air. "What do you want?" she asked, sitting down without any greeting. I didn't show any anger. I gently pushed a cup of chamomile tea toward her. "Have some tea to calm your nerves. I think you're going to need it." "I don't have time for this." Jessica crossed her arms, a defensive posture. "Kevin already told me about you. He said you're a jealous, controlling wife. He said you two are getting a divorce, that the love has been gone for years. He and I are in love." I laughed, a soft but deeply ironic sound. "In love? Sweetheart, do you have any idea how many women he's told that story to?" "What are you talking about?" Jessica frowned. I didn't answer her question. Instead, I took out my tablet and opened a photo album. "First, let me show you this." I slid the tablet across the table. The first image was my marriage certificate with Kevin, registered 7 years ago. "We are still legally married. He lied to you." Jessica stared at the document, her face paling. I swiped to the next photo, the one Sarah had taken of Kevin and Jessica holding hands. And this is you, isn't it? Very romantic. Then I began swiping rapidly. A series of other photos appeared. Kevin, with his arm around a blonde in Miami. Kevin with his arm around another girl at a nightclub. Kevin leading a girl with glasses into a hotel. Each photo featured a different woman, but the man was always the same. This is a third-year student. This one just graduated. And this one is a model. Do I need to go on? Jessica's face went from pale to ashen. Her initial defiance had vanished, replaced by confusion and hurt. She stammered, "No, it can't be. Kevin told me. He said I was the only one. He tells every girl that." I said, my voice calm, but each word was like a knife to her pride. "Where do you think those designer bags and expensive dresses come from? His lecturer's salary? No, sweetheart. It's all my money. He takes his wife's money to support his mistresses, including you. You're not special. You're just one of many options." Jessica completely broke down. She looked at me, her eyes welling with tears. "Why? Why are you showing me this?" "Because I want you to know the truth." I pulled the tablet back, and because I want to give you a choice. One, you can continue to blindly believe the lies of a con artist, and one day, you'll be discarded just like the others. Or two, you can wake up, leave him, and save your own future. You're young. You have your whole life ahead of you. Don't ruin it for a worthless man. I stood up, ready to leave. Oh, and one more thing. You've probably read that pathetic post on social media. He says I kicked his mother out, but he didn't mention that his mother once put a substance in my food that could have made me infertile. He didn't mention that he has humiliated me in front of our family 8 times. Do you really think a man like that is worth your sacrifice? With that, I turned and walked away, leaving Jessica alone with the devastating truth. I knew my words today had planted a seed of doubt and anger in her heart. Sooner or later, that seed would sprout. I didn't need to do anything else. The jealousy and rage of scorned women would be the most potent weapon against Kevin. After dealing with Jessica, I focused on another equally important front: finances. The bank statements my father gave me were just the tip of the iceberg. I had a feeling Kevin wasn't just siphoning my money to support his mistresses. There was a larger scheme at play. I sat down with my father and Mr. Harrison in my father's study. Spread across the table were stacks of financial documents from the past 7 years. "Dad, I'm seeing some very large transfers from our joint account to a company called New Horizons Educational Development." "Whose company is this?" I asked, pointing to a line item. My father squinted at the name. "New Horizons. Sounds familiar." He turned to his trusted assistant. "Have someone look into this company immediately." While we waited, Mr. Harrison spoke up. "Miss Montgomery, I've also noticed something unusual. Many of the small-scale contracts for office supplies and minor repairs for our corporation's branches over the past few years have been awarded to a company called Apex Office Solutions. Each contract is small, but they add up to a significant amount, and their prices are consistently 20 to 30% higher than the market rate." Apex Office Solutions? I frowned. I'd never heard of them. As a director, I usually only approved major projects. These smaller contracts were handled by department heads. "Here's the problem," Mr. Harrison continued. "The registered owner of Apex Office Solutions is a very close relative of Director Thompson." Director Thompson. My arch nemesis at the firm, the man who was always trying to sabotage me. A bad feeling washed over me. Just then, my father's assistant returned, his face grim. "Sir, Miss Montgomery, I have the information. New Horizons Educational Development is a soft skills training and college prep center. The registered owner is Barbara Vance, Mr. Vance's mother." My father and I were stunned. Barbara, a woman whose only skill was penny pinching, running an educational center? "Keep going," my father instructed. "And the registered business address for this center is in a building owned by Director Thompson." The scattered puzzle pieces suddenly clicked into place. I understood everything. Kevin had used my money to secretly open a training center, putting his mother's name on it to hide it from me. He had partnered with my enemy, Director Thompson. Thompson helped Kevin cover his tracks, and in return, Kevin likely provided insider information or helped Thompson approve those inflated contracts to embezzle money from my family's corporation. It was a sophisticated, calculated conspiracy. "That's not all," the assistant added. "A preliminary check of New Horizons tax records shows numerous signs of fraud. They've declared revenues far below their actual operational scale. The profits are funneled into Barbara Vance's personal account and then disappear. That bastard. My father slammed his hand on the table, a rare show of anger from him. He not only bites the hand that feeds him, but he conspires with outsiders to destroy this family. A chill ran down my spine. I had severely underestimated Kevin Vance's greed and deceit. He wasn't just a common philanderer. He was a venomous snake with grand ambitions. He wanted to take everything that belonged to me and my family. Mr. Harrison, I turned to the lawyer. Please gather more evidence on the tax fraud at New Horizons and the shady business dealings between Director Thompson and Apex Office Solutions. We're not just getting a divorce. We're bringing these criminals to justice. Understood, Miss Montgomery. This was no longer just about a failed marriage. It was a war to protect the assets, honor, and legacy that my family had built. And it was a war I could not afford to lose. On the list of Kevin's mistresses that my father had investigated, one name stood out, Megan Carter. According to the file, Megan had also been one of Kevin's students, but their relationship had ended over a year ago under unpleasant circumstances. The notes mentioned that Megan had taken a semester off from school for health reasons. A woman's intuition told me there was more to her story. I decided I had to find her. Unlike Jessica, who was currently being pampered by Kevin, Megan was likely harboring deep resentment. She could be a crucial witness, a key player who could completely unmask Kevin's hypocritical facade. Finding Megan was harder than I thought. After leaving school, she had moved and cut off contact with most of her old friends. But with my father's connections, I finally got her current address. She was working part-time at a small bakery in the suburbs. I went to the bakery on a quiet afternoon. Megan was behind the counter, wearing a simple uniform, her long hair tied back neatly. She looked thinner and paler than in her photo. Her large eyes held a deep, lingering sadness. When I walked in, she looked up, and a flicker of panic crossed her face when she recognized me. She had probably seen me in the society pages from my wedding 7 years ago. "Hello, Megan. I'm Clara," I said softly, trying to create a non-threatening atmosphere. "Could I talk to you for a minute?" Megan looked down, her hands nervously twisting the hem of her apron. I have nothing to say to you. I know you're scared, but I'm not here to blame you or hurt you. I just want to know the truth. I think you and we're both victims of the same man." My words seemed to strike a chord. She looked up, the defensiveness in her eyes slowly replaced by a well of suppressed pain. She gestured for me to sit at a small table in the corner. After getting permission from her boss for a short break, Megan sat across from me. She was silent for a long time before finally speaking, her voice trembling. "What do you want to know?" "About you and Kevin. About what happened a year ago." Megan took a deep, shaky breath, her gaze fixed on the raindrops beginning to streak down the window pane. Her story tumbled out, each word like a fresh cut. She and Kevin had started like any other romantic student-teacher affair. He was attentive, helped her with her studies, and used his sweet words to capture the heart of a naive young woman. And then, she got pregnant. When I told him, he changed completely. Megan's voice broke. He wasn't gentle or caring anymore. He said his career was taking off, and he couldn't let a baby ruin everything. He told me he and you were about to get a divorce, that I just needed to wait a little longer. Tears streamed down her cheeks. He gave me some money and told me to take care of it myself. I refused. I told him I would keep the baby, even if I had to raise it alone. That's when he started threatening me. He said if I didn't get rid of the baby, he would make sure I never graduated. He would spread rumors, destroy my reputation, and make it so I could never show my face anywhere again. Megan broke down into heart-wrenching sobs, her thin shoulders shaking. I was so scared. I was just a girl from a small town, all alone in the city. In the end, I did what he said. I went to the clinic, by myself. Her tragic story made my heart ache. I knew Kevin was a terrible person, but I never imagined he could be so cruel, so inhuman. He hadn't just destroyed a relationship. He had destroyed a tiny, unborn life and the future of a young woman. I handed Megan a tissue and waited for her to compose herself. "Megan, I am so sorry for what you went through. The person who did this to you must be punished." Megan wiped her tears, her eyes now filled not with weakness, but with pure, unadulterated hatred. "I hate him. I hate him to my very core. He's the one who ruined my life. Then will you help me?" I looked directly into her eyes. "Will you agree to testify in court and tell this whole story?" I promise I will protect you. My lawyer will ensure no harm comes to you. Megan didn't hesitate for a second. Yes, I'm not afraid anymore. I want him to pay for what he did to me and to my baby. Megan's agreement was a major victory. I now had an irrefutable witness, a story with a weight to crush all of Kevin Vance's lies. Leaving the bakery, my heart was heavy with sympathy for Megan, but also filled with a steely resolve. I would get justice, not just for myself, but for all the women he had trampled on and destroyed. Kevin must have sensed the net tightening around him. He couldn't reach Jessica. The bank accounts he used to fund his affairs had been frozen by me, and he had likely gotten wind that I was investigating his mother's training center. Panic made a man who considered himself so clever act recklessly. That night, as I was preparing a simple dinner for myself in my apartment, the doorbell rang frantically. Through the security monitor, I saw Kevin. He looked even worse than before. He wasn't drunk, but his bloodshot eyes and gaunt face showed he was under extreme stress. I hesitated, but then decided to open the door. I wanted to see what other tricks this cornered animal had left. Before opening it, I quietly activated the voice recorder on my phone. The moment the door cracked open, Kevin slipped inside and suddenly dropped to his knees at my feet. The move was so unexpected, I took a step back in shock. "Clara, I'm begging you, forgive me." He looked up at me, his face streaked with tears, his voice filled with anguish. "It's all my fault. I'm a horrible person, a scumbag. I betrayed your love. I made you suffer. I deserve to be punished." He then started slapping himself across the face, the sharp sounds echoing in the quiet apartment. "Please, Clara, give me one last chance. Let's not get a divorce, okay? I promise I'll change. I'll cut off all contact with those other women. I'll shut down that stupid sinner. I'll be a good husband. I'll only love you. Please." He crawled forward, trying to hug my legs, but I moved away. This performance, though more elaborate than his others, didn't move me in the slightest. I knew him too well. This was just the act of a man terrified of losing everything. "Get up." My voice was cold. "Stop this pointless charade. Things have gone too far. There's no turning back. And I don't want to." My decisiveness seemed to be the last straw. Seeing his pathetic act had failed, Kevin stopped instantly. He stood up, wiped the tears from his face, and the pleading expression vanished, replaced by a twisted mask of hatred. "Fine. Fine," he sneered, a terrifying grin on his face. "If you're going to be so heartless, then don't blame me. Who do you think you are? Just a barren woman who can't even have a baby." His venomous words were a dagger to my heart. The issue of children had been my deepest, most private pain for 7 years. We had seen specialists. The doctor said we were both fine, that it just hadn't happened yet. I had agonized over it, blamed myself. And now, he was using that pain to humiliate me. He stepped closer, his voice a hiss. 7 years, and your womb is empty. Look at yourself. Besides money, what do you have? A woman who can't fulfill her biological purpose is as good as garbage. The only reason I went to other women was because of you. Because you couldn't give me a child, an heir to carry on my name. The most cruel, vicious words poured from the mouth of the man I had once loved with all my heart. He twisted everything, turning his own infidelity and betrayal into something justifiable, something I had driven him to. I stood silently, staring at him. I no longer felt pain, only infinite contempt. Contempt for his cowardice, for the cruelty hidden beneath his intellectual veneer. Seeing my silence, he grew bolder. "What? Nothing to say? Hit a nerve, did I? Let me tell you something. If it weren't for your family's money, I wouldn't even look at a woman like you. You're useless. Are you finished?" I finally spoke, my voice chillingly calm. Kevin stopped, taken aback by my composure. "If you're finished, please get out of my home before I call security." I threw the door wide open. Kevin glared at me with pure hatred and stormed out. Before he left, he turned back and uttered one last threat. "You just wait. Clara Montgomery. I won't let you get away with this." The door slammed shut. I leaned against the wall, letting out a long breath. I placed a hand on my chest where my heart had once been broken, but now felt strangely peaceful. The recording on my phone had captured the entire exchange. It would be the most powerful evidence of his emotional abuse. "Kevin Vance, you just handed me another weapon to end your own career and reputation." Kevin's threats were not empty. Cornered, he resorted to the lowest possible tactic, attacking my greatest vulnerability, my family. The next morning, While I was at the firm dealing with the fallout from his previous disruption, I got a call from my mother. Her voice was trembling with panic. "Clara, come home. Now. It's your father." He collapsed. My world stopped. I bolted from my office without a word to anyone, driving home like a maniac. A single, overwhelming fear gripped me. My father had a history of heart problems. He couldn't handle severe stress. When I arrived, an ambulance was already there. Paramedics were loading my father onto a stretcher. He was unconscious, his face pale and ashen. My mother stood beside him, sobbing uncontrollably. I ran to my father's side and grabbed his hand. It was cold as ice. "Dad, Dad, wake up," I cried, but there was no response. My mother and I rode in the ambulance to the hospital. The entire way, I prayed. I blamed myself. If it weren't for my problems, if I hadn't been so consumed by this fight that I neglected to check on my father's emotional state, this might not have happened. My anger towards Kevin and his family now morphed into a burning, bottomless hatred. At the hospital, after emergency treatment, my father's condition stabilized. The head cardiologist told us he suffered a severe stress-induced heart attack. "You got him here just in time. He's stable for now, but he needs to be monitored closely." Absolutely no stress or emotional agitation. My mother and I breathed a collective sigh of relief. I sat by his bedside, holding his hand, looking at his tired, frail face, my heart aching. Just then, my phone vibrated. A text from an unknown number. I opened it. It was a photo of my father in his hospital bed, tubes and wires connected to him. The picture was taken secretly from the doorway. Below, it was a message. "See? This is just the beginning. If you don't back off, next time it won't just be a collapse. Drop the divorce and give me back what's mine, or start planning your old man's funeral." I didn't have to guess who sent it. My hand clenched my phone so tightly, my knuckles turned white. Kevin Vance's depravity knew no bounds. He was using my father's life to threaten me. Rage surged through me, but I quickly calmed myself. I knew that panicking was exactly what he wanted. I didn't reply. Instead, I called Mr. Harrison, told him everything, and requested 24/7 security at the hospital. But it didn't end there. About an hour later, as I was peeling an apple for my father, a figure stormed into the hospital room. Barbara Vance. Gone was the pitiful, fake persona. In its place was a face of brazen, aggressive fury. "Clara Montgomery, you curse. Isn't it enough that you've ruined my son? Now, you're trying to kill your own father too?" She shrieked, ignoring the fact that she was in a hospital. In his bed, my father winced at the noise. I shot up and stood between him and Barbara. "Be quiet. This is a hospital, not a marketplace for you to scream in," I said, my voice sharp. "I won't be quiet. I'm going to tell everyone here what a disrespectful, ungrateful daughter you are. You're the one who put your father in here. If anything happens to him, it's all your fault." She raved like a madwoman. Nurses and hospital security, hearing the commotion, rushed in. I pointed at Barbara and told the guards, "Please remove this woman. She is causing a disturbance and distressing a patient." 2 large guards restrained Barbara, but she continued to scream curses. "You just wait. My family won't let you get away with this. You venomous snake." After she was dragged away, the room was quiet again. I turned back to the bed and saw my father's eyes were open. He looked at me, his gaze both pained and resolute. He patted my hand, his voice weak but clear. Don't let their words shake you, my girl. We cannot back down now." I nodded, fighting back tears. My father's words gave me strength. He was right. I couldn't retreat. To do so now would be the ultimate insult to his love and sacrifice. Kevin and his family had started this fire. I would make sure it consumed them completely. After a few days, my father's health improved. Though still weak, he could sit up and talk. Seeing the resilience in his eyes, I knew I had to act even more decisively. One afternoon, when we were alone, I laid out my plan for him. My father listened in silence, then nodded, a sharp glint in his eye. "You're doing the right thing. With someone like Kevin, you can't use conventional morality. You have to fight fire with fire. You said you met the girl, Jessica?" "Yes." I showed her the evidence of his other affairs. "Good. But that's not enough," my father said, his voice stronger now. "Right now, she's in a state of shock and denial, probably still clinging to some fantasy about him. You need to give her one final push of truth so undeniable it shatters her illusions completely. He looked at me meaningfully. Use an anonymous number and send her everything you have on Kevin's relationship with that other girl, Megan. Especially the part about him forcing her to have an abortion. Add in the pictures of him with all the other women, too. Let jealousy and the feeling of being utterly deceived do the rest of the work. My father's plan was brilliant. He understood the psychology of a person in love. When betrayed, jealousy can turn the mildest person into a force of nature. I followed his instructions immediately. Using a burner phone, I created a fake social media account and sent Jessica everything. The photos of Kevin and Megan, copies of his threatening texts to her, and the pictures of him with a dozen other women. I didn't write a single word, just sent the cold, hard evidence. Jessica's reaction was faster than I expected. An hour later, she called the burner phone, but I didn't answer. She sent a flurry of texts, first accusing me of lying, then begging me to say it wasn't true. My silence was the only confirmation she needed. And then, the inevitable happened. The next morning, the university where Kevin worked was thrown into chaos. Jessica, in a state of extreme agitation, stormed the department office where Kevin was in a meeting. She kicked the door open and burst in, holding up her phone displaying the photos I had sent. "Kevin Vance, you liar. You monster," she screamed, her voice filled with rage, drawing the attention of every faculty member and student nearby. Kevin, sitting in the meeting, went pale. He jumped up, trying to stop her. "Jessica, what are you doing here? Let's go home and talk about this." "What home? Your home? Or your rich wife's home?" Jessica laughed manically. "You told me you loved me. You said you were going to divorce her and marry me. Then, who are all these women? And who is this girl you forced to have an abortion?" She shoved the phone in everyone's faces. The scandal of a professor's love life being exposed at work was bad enough. But the worst was yet to come. In her rage, wanting to completely destroy him, Jessica screamed one last thing, a sentence that slammed the door on his career forever. "And you all want to know something else? He's not just a cheater. He's a fraud. Half of the paper that got him his associate professorship was written by me. I stayed up night after night writing it. He forced me to do it, threatening to fail me if I didn't. Does a man like that deserve to be a teacher?" Her words were a bombshell. Academic fraud is an unforgivable sin in academia. The professors in the room stared at Kevin with disgust and disbelief. The department head, a notoriously strict man, his face turned to stone. The matter was quickly escalated to the university administration. Kevin was immediately suspended pending a full investigation. News of the scandal spread like wildfire across student social media. In a single morning, Dr. Kevin Vance went from a respected professor to a cheating, fraudulent disgrace. My father's gambit had worked perfectly. Kevin had been dealt a fatal blow by the very mistress he thought he controlled. While Kevin was reeling from the scandal at the university, Director Thompson at my firm seized the opportunity to make his move against me. Believing I was distracted and emotionally unstable, he saw it as the perfect time to oust me. Thompson called an emergency board meeting to reevaluate the feasibility of my seaside resort project, my most cherished professional accomplishment. He knew how important this project was to me. If it were shelved or given to someone else, it would be a devastating blow to my credibility and position. In the meeting, Thompson feigned deep concern for the company's bottom line. He presented a series of figures, arguing that my design was too expensive, over budget, and posed significant construction risks. He also subtly implied that given my unstable personal situation, I might not be fit to lead such a massive project. The other board members began to waver. I listened to all of it in silence. When Thompson finished, certain he had won, I calmly stood up. "Thank you for your very concerned input, Director Thompson," I said. "However, I'm afraid the data you've presented is outdated and not entirely accurate." I then projected a detailed report onto the main screen, one my team and I had worked on all night, anticipating this exact move. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is the latest cost analysis, updated with current material and labor prices. As you can see, the total cost remains well within the projected budget. As for the construction risks Mr. Thompson mentioned, we have detailed contingency plans for every single phase." I presented my case with clear, professional precision, using irrefutable data to dismantle his every point. He began to sweat, but I wasn't finished. After defending my project, I went on the offensive. "Speaking of financial concerns, I would also like to raise an issue that has been troubling me. That is the unusually high cost of our company's small-scale procurement contracts. I projected another report. This is a price comparison from our vendors over the past year. As you can see, a company called Apex Office Solutions has consistently won bids with prices 20 to 30% above market rate. The total discrepancy over the last year amounts to nearly $1 million. This is an unacceptable waste of company funds. Hearing the name Apex, Thompson's face went white. He shot up from his chair. What are you implying? This has nothing to do with today's meeting. No? As I understand it, Apex is owned by a very close relative of yours, and most of these contracts were approved by departments under your direct supervision. Do you think that's a coincidence, Director Thompson? I stared him down. The room was silent. All eyes were on him. He stammered, speechless. I pressed on, my voice like steel. I propose the board form an independent audit committee to review all contracts with Apex Office Solutions and to investigate the approval process in the relevant departments. We must clean house. We cannot allow parasites to continue bleeding this company dry. My proposal was immediately seconded and approved by the chairman of the board, a man my father trusted. Thompson collapsed into his chair, his face the color of ash. He knew his time was up. I had not only defended my work, but had turned the tables, exposing the man who conspired with my husband to bring me down. I wanted them both to know. Clara Montgomery was not to be trifled with. Anyone who came after me or my family would pay a very, very steep price. Suspended from work, publicly exposed by his mistress, and vilified online, Kevin Vance was on the verge of a complete breakdown. He had lost everything in a matter of days: his reputation, his career, his money, and the women he thought he could control. In his desperation, he turned to alcohol, which only fueled his rage and resentment. He blamed me for everything, convinced I was the one who had destroyed his life. That night, I had to stay late at the office to finish some critical paperwork for the project. Around 11 p.m., when the building was nearly deserted, I heard a loud crash in the hallway, followed by a violent banging on my office door. I checked the security feed. It was Kevin. He was drunk, ramming his shoulder against the reinforced glass door. When that failed, he grabbed a nearby fire extinguisher and shattered the glass. Terrified, I ducked behind my desk and frantically called building security. Kevin staggered in, reeking of alcohol, his eyes bloodshot and wild. He looked like a cornered animal. "Clara Montgomery, where are you? Get out here," he roared. He saw the architectural models I had painstakingly built, the blueprints I had poured my soul into. His rage exploded. He lunged forward, sweeping everything off the tables. The intricate models shattered on the floor, the rolls of drawings torn to shreds. "You destroyed my life. You destroyed everything I had. So, I'm going to destroy what you love most," he screamed as he rampaged through my office. I hid behind my desk, my heart hammering in my chest. I had never seen him so terrifying. The gentle, sophisticated man I once knew was gone, replaced by a violent, irrational monster. After he had finished his destruction, he started looking for me. "Where are you hiding? You think you can hide from me?" He overturned tables, threw chairs. Finally, he found me. He let out a chilling, maniacal laugh. "There you are, you bitch. Today, I'm going to show you what hell is really like." He lunged at me. I screamed, grabbing the heavy desk lamp and hurling it at him. It hit him in the shoulder, making him stumble, but it only made him more furious. He grabbed me by the hair, yanking my head back. "You dare to hit me?" Just then, the security team finally burst in. 4 large guards swarmed him, quickly wrestling him to the ground. He struggled desperately, still screaming threats. "Let go of me. I'm going to kill her. I'll kill her." They handcuffed him and dragged him away. I collapsed to the floor, shaking with fear and rage. I looked at my ruined office, at the fruits of my labor lying in pieces, and my heart broke. But more than that, I felt a sense of relief. Kevin's final, desperate act of violence had sealed his own fate. The entire incident, the breaking and entering, the destruction of property, the assault was captured on camera. It would be the final, irrefutable piece of evidence in court. The last nail in his coffin. The play was over, and Kevin Vance was the only one who would pay the price. After months of struggle, the day I had been waiting for finally arrived. The divorce hearing was held at the city courthouse. The atmosphere was tense and solemn. I sat at the plaintiff's table with Mr. Harrison, feeling surprisingly calm. Across the aisle, Kevin Vance sat looking gaunt and defeated, all traces of his former professorial arrogance gone. Beside him, Barbara looked tired and anxious. The trial began. Mr. Harrison laid out our case, presenting one piece of evidence after another, each one a hammer blow to Kevin's lies. First, the evidence of his infidelity, a slideshow of photos and videos of him with various women, the bank statements detailing his payments to them. Kevin stared at the floor, unable to look up. Next, Mr. Harrison played the audio recording of the night Kevin came to my apartment. His vicious words about my infertility echoed through the silent courtroom. A woman who can't fulfill her biological purpose is as good as garbage. A murmur went through the room. Then came the evidence of his financial and academic fraud. The files on the sham training center, the proof of tax evasion, his collusion with Director Thompson, and the official letter from the university detailing his suspension for academic misconduct. At this, Kevin lost his composure, jumping to his feet. Lies. It's all lies. They bought everyone off. The defendant will maintain order. The judge's gavel cracked. But the final blow was yet to come. Mr. Harrison called his witnesses. First was Jessica. She recounted how Kevin had manipulated her and, most importantly, confessed that she had written a substantial portion of his academic paper under duress. The final witness was Megan. She was trembling as she took the stand, but her voice, though quiet, was filled with a righteous anger. She told her tragic story, how she had become pregnant, and how Kevin had threatened and coerced her into having an abortion. He said the baby would ruin his career. She sobbed. He gave me a stack of cash and told me to handle it. He never once checked on me after that day. To him, me and my unborn child were just a problem to be thrown away. Megan's testimony silenced the entire courtroom. There were gasps, whispers, and looks of utter contempt directed at Kevin. Barbara covered her face with her hands, perhaps finally realizing the kind of monster her son truly was. Kevin slumped in his chair, his face gray, a man utterly defeated. All his masks had been torn away. The verdict was in. After a short deliberation, the judge returned and began to read. After a thorough review of all evidence and testimony, this court finds the plaintiff's petition for divorce to be fully justified. The defendant, Mr. Kevin Vance, has committed gross violations of marital law, including adultery, emotional abuse, and infidelity, causing severe harm to the plaintiff. Therefore, the court grants the divorce of Miss Clara Montgomery and Mr. Kevin Vance. A wave of relief washed over me. 7 years of hell were officially over. The judge continued, addressing the division of assets. The mansion and all my other premarital assets were affirmed as my sole property. As for marital assets, the court ordered Kevin to repay the more than $500,000 he had embezzled from our joint accounts. He was also ordered to pay me substantial damages for emotional distress. Furthermore, the judge's voice grew stern. This court will send an official notice to the university regarding Mr. Vance's academic fraud and ethical violations. The case files concerning the financial fraud and tax evasion of New Horizons Educational Development will be turned over to the district attorney's office for criminal prosecution. It was a total victory. Kevin couldn't accept it. He leaped up, pointing wildly at the judge. This is unfair. You were all bribed. Her family paid you off. I don't accept this. I'll appeal. He tried to rush the bench, but was restrained by court officers, kicking and screaming as he was dragged away, a pathetic, contemptible shell of his former self. Barbara, watching her son's final disgrace, fainted in her seat. I watched the chaos unfold, feeling no joy, only a profound sense of peace. It was truly over. I stood up and turned to my parents, who were sitting in the back. My father gave me a small, proud smile. My mother was crying tears of happiness. I walked towards them, a new, brighter chapter of my life waiting to begin. 6 months flew by. My life was transformed. No more sleepless nights, no more tense dinners, no more lies. I poured myself into my work and the passions I had set aside for 7 years. The Seaside Resort project was completed to great acclaim, winning several industry awards. The greatest honor came when I was invited to Paris to accept a prestigious International Architecture Prize, one of the highest accolades in my field. Standing on that grand stage in Paris, holding the heavy award, I felt reborn. In my speech, I dedicated the award to all the strong women out there who have dared to rise from the ashes, to break their chains and build a new, more beautiful, and resilient life for themselves. Later, as I walked along the Seine, my phone rang. It was Mr. Harrison. "Congratulations, Miss Montgomery. I have some news. Kevin Vance's appeal was denied. The university has officially revoked his title and terminated his employment. The DA has formally indicted both him and his mother for tax fraud and embezzlement. The house they bought with the stolen money has been seized by the state and will be auctioned off to pay his debts to you." Justice had been served. A few months after Paris, the Montgomery Creative Space officially opened. I had transformed the old mansion. It was no longer a symbol of oppression, but a bright, open, modern co-working space and incubator for talented young female architects. At the opening ceremony, I announced the formation of the Clara Montgomery Foundation for Women Entrepreneurs, funded initially by the entirety of the settlement I had won in the divorce. I had turned my personal pain into a source of strength for others. One afternoon, waiting at a red light, I happened to glance out my window and saw a familiar figure. It was Kevin Vance. He was standing on a street corner, handing out flyers for a cheap tutoring center in a dingy alleyway. He looked 10 years older, his back stooped, his face weary. He didn't see me in my luxury car. In that moment, I felt nothing. No triumph, no pity. We were people from two different worlds. He had paid the price for his choices. I had found my own path. The light turned green, and I drove on. When I arrived back at the creative space, a talented male colleague, an architect I deeply respected, was waiting for me. He smiled, handing me a bouquet of brilliant sunflowers. "Congratulations, Clara. Our new project just won another design competition." I took the flowers, a genuine, happy smile spreading across my face. Looking at the sunflowers, which always turned towards the light, I knew my future would be just like them, forever bright and filled with wonderful things to come. My life had truly been rebuilt.